All right, everybody. How's it going? How's it going, Eric?
What's up, Trey? How you been?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm trying without the green screen today. Just gonna keep this going. Um, anyway, we missed last night. A little late. I was late to the party. So I we was talking off camera earlier, and the the wife said something about we were doing our podcast on the couch, and so we decided to. But my thought was, what's your horror story? And I know one of your horror stories with one of your guns, your XD45.
Oh, yes, yes. As far as it being a jam master, if you didn't have just like the absolute hottest ammunition you could come up with. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that thing was. Well, I was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it did not like to shoot practice ammo at all. It if you were shooting reloads that were sort of dumbed down a little bit, yeah, it just only wanted high pressure in order to cycle correctly as far as that. So
Well, that was definitely one that I was like, oh man, I actually own one in Springfield. I think took a long time. Uh, I got one and then I sold it, and then I wished I would have checked the price before I sold it because I actually sold it under what I paid for it.
right.
Took a little bit of a loss, but just because I was looking at the current, what the current ones were, and they were a shorter barreled model, 10 millimeter, and I ended up selling about $80 less than I paid for it because I thought what I had was like a 5.5 inch target model, more of like a competition build, and I hadn't looked at the price and like, oh god, I think I paid over 600 and I sold it for mid fives. So I was
Right.
like, God darn, and unfortunately, I ain't friends with the douchebag that bought it no more, and he didn't care. He was happy he got over on me, but
Yes,
he's like, yeah,
apparently that became the case.
oh yeah, no, he's shown me down the road, and that's why I don't do business with the asshole no more. Take your ass on down the road and go pay more money somewhere else. So we don't trade or talk anymore. Anyhow, that was my first screw up with him, and then there was another one, but that's a different story. I was talking about things where we have um, horror stories like Century Arms, because I just went to a gun show, Lebanon, whatever, RK.
There you go.
Yeah. So I haven't been to a gun show since Nashville, when they used to have it at the fairgrounds, which is a long time ago. They ceased doing that, and so I was like, somebody I know went yesterday, and we were supposed to go today, but the tornadoes yesterday hit, so I decided to just go myself because he had to go to his job where they got tornado damage and help work there. So anyway, went down there and almost got a Century Arms Galil, but then I was thinking of my Century Arms C93 Sporter, which, I told you about that, right? I told you on the couch a minute ago where the roller delay, the barrel is not pinned, and it was shipped out of the factory, not headspace properly. The bolt gap is horrible in it. The bolt gap shows that it needed some large rollers. I put large rollers in, and it still didn't correct the bolt gap. So basically, the barrel has to be taken off and repinned and headspace properly. But that was my horror story with Century Arms. I bought the gun. It was brand new. I think it was 2013 or 14. I picked it up in Macon, Georgia. I think it was 13. I picked it up at the store selling it in Macon, Georgia, because I wanted it on Gunbroker, and I was going through Macon, and I said, "Can I pick up?" And I was Tennessee, but Florida or Tennessee, we could still buy from Georgia.
Right, reciprocity.
Yeah, reciprocity, yes. So basically, I went by there and bought the gun and brought it home, put it in the safe, called it a Safe Queen. And I think it was New Year's Eve 2021 or 2020 going into 2021. We shot it, and the case bulged. It blew straight out. I mean, there was absolutely no lockup because the bolt gap is completely shot. So there's no way to headspace it without, anyway. that was my horror story with Century Arms. And when I called them about it, they just said, "What do you want us to do? We ain't made that rifle in 7-8 years." Basically, they told me to go pound sand and get fucked. I was like, yeah, y'all's quality's real poor. But the Galil I seen that I almost got. What kept me from doing it was that name on the side of the receiver, that Century Arms. It's like, you're buying a risk. Because I don't want to. What happens? And I heard another guy telling the story about a Galil that Century Arms sold that had a 5.45 by 39 barrel. This is the day the guy. There was a second guy selling, or his friend had one, and it was a 5.45 by 39 chamber that Century Arms chambered the barrel in, but the barrel bore was pulled 223, which means the bullet. The 5.45 bullet is just kind of bouncing down the barrel. And he said it was keyhole, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like Century Arms. They suck." But
right. And that's an incredibly long projectile too.
Yes, it is. Well, it's a long projectile, and it's got a skinnier diameter, so you'll never be accurate with it. He luckily found somebody to buy it, even though the bore was pulled. But I mean, if you wanted a close quarters house gun, I'm sure. If you wasn't interested in trying to shoot something 200 yards away, you just trying to get 25 yards and down, I imagine a bullet going into your ass sideways gonna get your attention.
Oh yeah, talk about already tumbling as far as that goes. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's what I think. Some of them guns where they have the super stupid short barrels for the 5.56, they keyhole real quick, and even that smooth bore, which was so funny. You remember the smooth bore by Franklin Armory?
Yes.
The smooth bore that wasn't technically a rifle because it didn't have rifling, and then they could make it a short barrel and get away with it. And then the ATF tried to. Did they stop them from that?
I honestly, I know about their binary trigger. That's what I see most often nowadays. But I haven't gone to like a Franklin Arsenal website in forever. So I don't even know if they sell their weapon or not.
I don't know. It was one of them. It was one of those weird things where he, it's. I said, I don't know what the ATF ever did about it. I know they weren't happy about it.
Right.
They were definitely not happy about it. But that's what I'm saying. That gun, watching people shoot that smoothbore 5.56 out of a, whatever length barrel they sold it in. You could pick your poison, and it had a actual. So that's what I was trying to get. I try to get into some of the videos where I talk about things about. Putting a brace on something is an attempt at compliance, because if you didn't want to be compliant, you just put a stock on it.
Right.
That's the whole funny business about that. But that, the smoothbore keyholes at like 20 yards, it's just, that was the whole point of it. And I mean, like I said, it's already tumbling when it reaches you. If you're somebody, and if it isn't tumbling, it's about to,
Right.
There's no stabilization. So if you come in somebody's door and you was 6 yards away and they hit you with that rifle, it might not be tumbling, but it's on the way. It's about to go end over end. You're definitely going to get the tumble from a smoothbore. And that's, like I said, the laws are so ridiculously stupid at this point. But like I said, the compliance thing, that's just putting a brace on something is compliant. And I don't agree with I did make my, that's right. I should we talk about, did you fill out the rulemaking or no?
No, because when you and I had spoke, I think I got up probably like 7:00 that night. So yeah, which would have been 9:00 in the East. So I imagine it may actually go off of, if you think about it, maybe I ought to go off of the Hawaii and Alaska time zone. But no, I did not. I did see a program, however, that talked about they were trying to delay the comments on the ruling, or like responding to the comments as far as that. So, which is, once again, government at its finest. Okay, we're not getting the answers we want, so let's see what we can do about, delaying it or prolonging it, however, so it is interesting in that regard. But no, I did not get around to submitting a comment.
Well, I'll read mine. And
yes, I did read yours. It was a well penned, very, very good comment.
Well, I wanted to put more question marks in it than. Let me get to it. I'm going to find our text. I was trying to put more question marks in it because they're supposed to answer your questions. I mean, maybe I should have submitted 3 or 4 short and sweet ones, but still,
it was multiple question.
Yeah, it was long. I know it was long, but basically, so it's a whole page. Boy, that's a big one. So
yes, it was.
So here's my.
I thought I was getting a text from an ex.
From what?
From an ex.
Oh, an ex. Well,
yes, I have an ex that likes to.
I'm not your ex, but
she likes to create books also. But yes, that was your statement there was very well penned, by the way.
Oh shit, where'd it go? I lost it. Oh. Okay, getting back to it. I do have the record. I'm going to try to keep an eye on it and wait for because I did pin one to the stabilizing brace, but this one I wrote, I think I did that this is like my third comment to their rulemaking. I know one was on the pistol brace, one was on this, trying to redefine doing business, dealing in, without a license, okay. So to whom it may concern, from my understanding, the definition infringe means to transgress or exceed the limits of, violate, infringe a contract, infringe a patent, to defeat, invalidate, to encroach on someone or something engaged in trespassing, an increased workload, what infringed on his personal, so it's basically, is that exactly what the NFA, GCA, and Hughes Amendment all did? Not to mention this false sense of security you and the news allude to all the time, that background checks, 4473s, in parentheses, are an usurpation of a right, the Second Amendment, and by arbitrary laws and unconstitutional taxes on such rights, keep them safe. That's making kind of more of a statement. I said, let me remind and state for the record that any free man is given leeway with a driver's license, can rent a U-Haul freely and cheaply, and can cause more death than any mass shooter ever has. Case in point, this is the story from France, the Bastille thing. So on the evening of the 14th July, 2016, a 19-ton cargo truck was deliberately driven into a crowd of people celebrating Bastille Day on the Promenade des Angelus in Nice.
Yeah, the
Angelis in France, Nice, France, resulting in the deaths of 86 people and the injury of 434 others. I said, with that said, you believe this overreach of regulation is allowable under the Bruin test? Cars kill more people by far, but aren't regulated nearly as bad. Will the DMV begin charging people engaged in the business of selling cars? This is such an encroachment on our rights to remain free men. How about you keep the people who shouldn't have guns locked away and stop this nonsense of regulation on free people? ? You don't do that. And I'll get to what my number one thought process that I had from the other podcast this morning that I thought was one of my better ones. Regulation on free, it's a well-regulated, meaning to make regular, not restrict. Basically, that's the classic what regulated mean. Militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Period. Not what this and every gun law has done since the time of the founding. You are also in violation of due compensation by restricting sale of private property, which government's limited powers don't allow them to do. I hope this reaches you well and look forward to addressing all my concerns. Unlikely will your agency answer these and many questions, but you are again overstepping. So just more of facts, but there is a few questions. I want to know if is the DMV going to regulate cars? If you sell more than 5 cars in a year, you going to jail for 10 years? People do that all the time.
Right. Yes. I mean, you can buy and sell as far as that goes. I mean, the latest 4473.
Well, there's 2 questions on it. Have you seen?
Yeah.
2.
The first 2 questions that are on there,
there's one on the second page. There's one on the first page and one on the second page. So they've added 2 questions about, do you intend to sell this, or you're not buying this for someone else? I mean, well, technically there's 2 on the front page and there's 1 on the back page about resale. So they're trying to weave the web and entangle people into criminal charges.
Yeah. I mean, and just like you said, a vehicle is just as deadly as a gun.
Well, I mean, you can go in a barn and buy a car every day and take a car 365 days a year. You could buy a car and then sell a car the same day. They don't give a shit. They
Nope.
care less.
Yep.
But all of a sudden it's a gun, it's a problem.
Right. Via private sale, so you could basically correlate the same. You could correlate anything that you possess as far as that goes. If you purchase it, tool cabinets, tools.
Yeah, you buy some tool. You know somebody. You know somebody that needs a circular saw, and you're walking through a pawn shop and you see it for $30, and the guy's wanting to buy yours for $50. Same brand. You pick it up for $30. You go sell it to him same day for $50. You made a $20 profit. Are you a pawn shop without a license? Are you Harbor Freight?
Right.
No, you're
right.
not. No, you're not.
You don't have a vending license as far as that to, buy, sell, and trade as far as that. So yeah, it does end up being like, well, it's still a commodity. It's still something that I purchase. And, and I can understand that they may say, hey, you don't have the ability to, do a 4473. But I guess you could always go over to the local police station if you wanted to. I know here in the state of New Mexico that firearms transfers are supposed to all be handled through FFLs anyway. So, it's something, you can buy and sell cars which have a title, and you could receive a title from somebody and not even put your name on that title, just leave the seller or the buyer aspect of it blank, and then, show up in, Marketplace, Craigslist, if that still exists even, and okay, on Auto Trader or any of those other privately, to sell private vehicles privately, and nobody's going to complain about it. There's not going to be, there are people who have DUIs in our driver's license world. You have people who have suspended driver's licenses, and there's nothing. I mean, that's still a violation of the law. Now it's a violation of the law if the person who has a suspended license decide that they want to drive that vehicle. It's not a violation on your part. But you know what? If I go out and I purchase a gun and then I decide to sell it to somebody who, is a private citizen as far as that, and they decide to go out and do something bad with it that they shouldn't, I mean, that's on them. That's not on me as far as that. The same as the purchase and the sale of a vehicle. If I buy a car from Joe Schmo and then Joe whatchamacallit comes over and says, I'd like to buy this car from you.
Joe in the hoe.
Yeah. There's no, hey, background check. that you have to go through to see if the person you're selling the vehicle to
You don't have to.
has
You don't even
the
have to.
ability to drive the vehicle.
Yeah, but so I'm saying you're not even. They don't even tell you that you've got a wink, wink nod to see that he has a driver's license.
Right. You know,
You're not required. They tell
it's
you
personal property.
And you also cross state lines. Don't forget that. Don't forget
Right.
that little thing, because we used to be in Jacksonville, you know, when we lived in Jacksonville and we'd go to the show down there. You know, somebody come in, if you had a handgun, you'd have to carry it to a dealer who was in Georgia, who would then carry it back to like Brunswick or Kingman, Georgia, or whatever. You know, if somebody was walking the show from Kingman or Brunswick, you know, and they seen a private guy and they wanted to buy it, you weren't legally, you know, you could be in trouble. If they was a Fed and they was from Georgia, you had to ask them for a driver's license, see what state they were from. And if it was a handgun, you could only sell to them if they were a Floridian. But if they were Georgian, sorry, sir, we got to find a dealer. Because you could be a Fed and you could be trying to entrap me and take my ass to jail, and that would be perfectly legal, which is I'm going to segue into an epiphany I had the other day, just a small one that I brought up when we talk about politics. I don't want to bring politics up here. I hate Donald Trump. I can't stand Donald Trump. Neither one of us like him. But it's funny how the news media tells us that he was the leader of the insurrection, and he served not one day in jail for that, right?
Correct.
Every time he got a mugshot for something completely different, not for insurrection and not for inciting a riot, as the news loves to tell you, but he's got a mugshot for other things, and that's it. He walked right out of court. So you mean to tell me he's not one of the blessed ones? That one of the people, the untouchables, when people who took a guided tour have spent over a year, and some of them years in jail, who were just walking around the Capitol looking. People who broke a window or moved a podium went to jail on January 6th, but the ringleader's been free this whole time. And my case in point, like I like to point to, the president's son is seen smoking crack so many times. What an idiot. He's smoking crack on camera. Ain't served a day in jail for it, but there's men in other states like Oklahoma, and there's mandatory minimums, life sentence in jail for having 140. I bet you Hunter Biden smoked 140 grams of crack, you know. But there's a man, I brought his name up this morning. I have to look it up again, but 140 grams of crack, he was given mandatory minimum life in prison for having that much crack cocaine on it. But the president's, so you want to tell me there's not two law structures in this country? No, there are two law structures. But the people that keep trying to over-regulate things like guns are the ones that have enough money and connections that it'll never affect them. It'll never affect them. They'll carry their gun wherever the hell they want to. They'll never serve a day in jail for carrying their gun because they're connected. And that's the system we need to figure out how to correct, I think. But with that said, that was my soapbox a little bit for the day.
Right.
I'll kick it back over to you. See what you watched on gun news this week or last week.
Right. Well, I actually have two items that I would like to bring up for sure. Was one, which was just a quick blurb with the whole Black Friday. We just got done, you know, the Christmas season and all that. Was that once again, the statistics have said that we had a record number of gun purchases over the Black Friday weekend. As far, you know, so for going to your commenting about common usage and things like that. Now, granted, those were obviously gun purchases and not anything, you know, semi-automatic weapons and stuff like that. But you know, that your argument to the fact that if automatic weapons and suppressors were something that did not require a tax stamp, that it would be in common usage as far as that. So, you know, because all we have to do is look and see the statistics. If you had on Black Friday that many people buying guns, as far as that, what would be the percentage of people that would probably have purchased suppressors or machine guns, and those might have even been bought and sold on Black Friday too. I'm not in the market for either one of those for myself personally at this moment, so I don't like scour, Silence Co. or Suppressor Central and places like that to find out if they've got any Black Friday deals going on. But I'm sure if I was interested in it, there might have been. They might have done Black Friday sales themselves. Who knows?
Well, there was Silencer Central had sent me one. Actually, speaking of them, from the NRA show, my Silencer Central pen that I got for buying my first silencer.
You got a free pen and a free tax stamp. All right.
No, I didn't get. Oh, I didn't know I paid the tax stamp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, that's another story. I'll lead into this real quick before you go to your last point. So I called Silencer Central because 11/28 it was supposedly shipped out of their warehouse or preparing shipment. 1 to 3 days I was supposed to get tracking update. So I think it was it Friday? I think I got him on the phone. I can go look at the text. I always keep texts. I like to have my record. So December 8th, so that was Friday. I called him and finally got him on the phone after waiting through 17 people in front of me. I called the day before and there was 21 or 22 people in front of me. So then I tried a live chat. The live chat ended up flopping and I had hung up on the phone, so I wasn't calling back. I was like, I'll piss on him. So on the 8th, I finally stuck out on the phone. He sent me a text. He gave me a screwed up USPS number. I mean, oh my God, it is. I don't even know how many digits. It's way too many. It's almost twice or at least 8 digits more than a standard USPS tracking number. So I can't track the package because he said, well, let me check on this. It's been in the system for a while. And I was like, well, why don't you send me a fucking email with the damn tracking number, you peckerheads? I guess this is back to the first story of an ongoing tumbling horror story that's happening with my silencer that I've been waiting since April for. Been approved since the beginning of November. It's been over a month since I was approved. And no tracking number except for this BS on the 8th, which was absolutely wrong. Now, Silencer Shop is probably who I should have picked. They were $20 to $30 cheaper on the silencer. The difference was Silencer Shop required me to go into the physical transfer store in my state, Tennessee, where Silencer Central, since they're handling it all, and they say, silencers delivered straight to your door in your driveway. And I was like, oh, well, the convenience of not having to go to a shop.
Right, well, especially in our profession, because you don't just have, normal hours.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, what if you were gone for 2 or 3 days and your silencer's in and you're just itching to screw it on your barrel and go see if it's worth it to buy more, because you're like, oh, I'm just itching to try it. So it's kind of one of those where it's easier. It's like, it's at the house. As soon as I get home, I don't gotta, because if you got home and it was after the store was closed, then you gotta wait till the next day, and then the next day you're working. You could be 3 days, or so you're thinking, I'm thinking I'll pay the $20-$30 to come to the door anyway, and happy joy, go shoot but so this is turning into a running damn nightmare that I got a device just floating around. They don't know where it's at. I can't track it because it's supposed to go to.
You mean one of the most regulated items in our history is currently under.
I asked him why
regulation.
I said, why didn't you use FedEx? Why did you use it? Because that $7.99 Remington I shown you the other day on our last show, that one, Swainsboro, Georgia, to Central. Well, it was shipped North to Central, somebody. Well, South Central Kentucky is where it was shipped to. So Middle Georgia to South Central Kentucky, and it took almost 10 days for that to get there because the post office is so retarded. They just completely, at this point, I don't like them at all. So I asked him about, well, sometimes FedEx, and I was like, they don't give me that shit, dude. Okay. If I got an SOT, I could go to FedEx and they bring the shit right to my damn door. Okay. Period. Don't give me that. I don't want to hear it. I already know they'll bring it because I know people who ship them and they ship FedEx. They don't ship USPS. I'm sorry.
Right.
So basically USPS has a NFA regulated item floating around and the tracking is absolutely dumb. And it's got to go to, before it can come to me, it has to go to a dealer in the state of Tennessee before it can come here. And I'm sitting here regretting my choice with Silencer Central, thinking, damn, I should have just went to Silencer Shop because they would have probably, if I was approved on the 8th, it would have probably been shipped straight to the local dealer near me. And he would have mailed the paperwork off saying he had it to the Clio. And then boom, away and I would have probably had it 2 or 3 weeks ago. But all this convenience, it's like, you're already waiting 6 months on a unconstitutional tax that makes things exorbitantly overpriced, because I guarantee you China would absolutely hook us up with a bunch of cheap shush devices if the NFA was abolished, and it should be. It absolutely should be.
How much, just out of curiosity, and you don't have to say the exact amount, but the one that you purchased, how much was it? Ballpark.
700, I think.
When you think about that, so it's a heavily regulated item, so it takes time. Even at $700, that is not oppressive. We purchase guns that'll be nearly $700, especially after you pay shipping and background fees. And
the Galil I was looking at, the Century Arms Galil, the guy wanted 12, said he would take 1050 cash, and I was like close, and then I started thinking about my C93 Century Arms Sporter that isn't headspace properly, and I'm thinking, I don't know this guy. I buy this gun, I go home, it's got a wrong board chamber, or it's keyholing, or something's wrong with the gas tube, the gas system. Century Arms forgot to drill a gas port, which I wouldn't put it past those monkeys that didn't check the headspace on a rifle before it left the factory. Or the bolt gap on a roller delay gun. You didn't check the bolt gap, you didn't check the headspace. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that gun.
Right. In just going with your $700 fee, or $700 cost for the
it was roughly just under $5. I think it was mid $4s to $5 for the $200
for the actual device. That's what
I was
asking.
No,
I was asking you what was the actual device.
Okay, no, I thought you were talking about all in. No. It was mid $4s. It was the Silencer Coast Sparrow, I believe. It's like a titanium sleeved. It's got the baffle stack, the titanium sleeve, and it goes inside of a monocore. So it's mainly 22, but it's a 22 that's super easy to clean and super strong, that can handle 5.7 by 28, 17 HMR, any of the small bore stuff. The guy said you can shoot 223 through it and it won't hurt it, but it'll void the warranty. So he's like, if you don't want to avoid the warranty, don't shoot 223 through it. But he said you can. It won't break. He said, right. But we don't recommend it. So it's a smaller one. It's more of like a, for like a plinking gun.
Right. So if you're going from that standpoint, $450. So now imagine going back to the record number of gun purchases on Black Friday weekend and common usage. If you go with common usage now, if you take that NFA item and turn it into a common usage device, $450. How far down do you think that device would actually end up? Could it actually end up? When you think about it, it is just baffles and some rolled sheet metal and stuff like that. 200, 300, maybe.
Oh, easy.
You said a plinking one on top of it, so the metal doesn't have to be as strong. for shooting high power cartridges. So you could probably even boil that down to maybe 150, between 150 and $200. And even there, if you wanted to, you could probably just, make it a component aspect where, if you were just able to afford, well, I'm going to, purchase the sleeve now, I'll purchase the baffles in the future, kind of a thing. You might even break down the cost of that even lower, as far as, how
I
that
think it
works. So,
says maybe it was cheaper. It was, I don't remember. I had to pay the tax stamp up front
Right.
and a portion. I don't know what it was. I'm looking at it here, and I won't gonna say, but the MSRP is $350. I think Silencer Shop was going to sell it for maybe the low threes. But I mean, what I'm saying is it's, it's still, China would absolutely just crush it. They would, they're already flooding us with the so-called fuel filter.
Right. So you're actually bringing me into subject number 2 that I was going to bring up, by the way. So the ATF has gone ahead and made a determination, I guess you could say, as far as, because silencers, suppressors are a regulated item. So nowadays, they have said that if you own any component of the so-called fuel filter, I guess they're also called sound forwarding devices.
Even the Napa.
I don't. Just the fuel filter thing. If you own any aspect of the sleeve, the baffle aspects, even the items that are used to screw on to the end of the barrel, essentially, they are considering you in violation of the NFA, and that you should turn any of your components in for destruction. So yes. So in that regard, I mean, it's a I don't know where folks could be legally necessarily as far as that, because I don't know, have they ever said that they were okay, like the pistol brace or the bump stocks? Have they ever necessarily come out and said, hey, these are an okay item and that you can own them, and folks are just maybe skirting around it? I don't know, but for sure they have now come up with the determination that if you own any component to it, that you are in NFA violation. And so that was actually a little bit of tidbit, I want to say, between the last couple of shows. I think I actually forgot to mention that in the last show. It just so happens that we were on this particular subject this time around. So yes, if you own any components of those fuel filter solvent traps, that you will be in violation of NFA law, and that you are, subject to the punishment of having an illegal NFA device, or a non-registered NFA device.
Listen here, perpetrator. That's what the government's doing. They're like, oh, you're a perpetrator. You're under arrest, you perpetrator. How dare you? Right. It's actually a Napa 4003. That's the filter. It's so funny. I hope that shows up on screen. The solvent traps.
Okay, now it's faded.
It cut out. Yeah, I seen it cut
out. Your one over there on the left, it was my left on the screen, and those
the one with the car. The one with the car.
Well, the one with the different components, and you could definitely
And then this one.
Yeah. So I have personally never seen the one in the center, as far as that, which I do understand it has presumably the same thread. Yeah, all of those. They are considering any of that, anything that you see right there, even the sleeve that sleeve, I guess, that goes over them, and I guess you screw that onto even the barrel nut. They are considering the barrel nut
They're
to be
ridiculous.
yes, yes. If you're in possession of the barrel nut itself, even yeah. So that was an interesting little tidbit that I had seen on there. Because how many times have we been on our social media platforms and seen advertisements for those? As far as that, it's always been sort of a curiosity as far as that, but at the same time, it's always been sort of that slippery slope also, if you will, or feeling like you're walking across ice in a parking lot kind of a thing. So, yes, they have now come out and said it's illegal, that you're in possession of a non-registered NFA device. And you cannot go to the ATF and say that you would like to register what you have. They could, I think it was Guns and Gadgets that I was listening to on this. And so if you are in possession of any of these solvent traps / fuel filters, it has to be destroyed. They're not going to compensate you for it. They're not going to allow you to say, if you suddenly say, well, hey, I would like to own a suppressor and I would like to register this device that I have already. They're not allowing that either. You cannot take it. It has to be destroyed. So that was I think the last show I had actually forgot to mention that. But actually it actually became very good for this show because we were talking about.
Well, I'm talking about having a legit shush can that's kind of floating around somewheres out there.
Right, a regulated item that's currently not in regulation.
Yeah. You got the Wix WF 10429. Then you've got the Napa 4003.
Right.
And then this, like I said, I'm wondering what's good. We'll talk off air. Well, what about I don't, and this is where I don't even know. Maybe, I heard that the XM19, was it the 193? That's the one with that long pinned. I've heard that if that doesn't have flash holes drilled in it all the way down the barrel, that even because it can reduce the report. I think the estimate was 3 decibels. 3 decibels.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're firing a 100 and I think it's about 156 decibels, I believe, for small, like the 10, I can't remember what it was. It's in the high 140s, 1 to 160 decibel range for a short barrel, 11 and a half inch or something. Like the XM or the Mark, was it the Mark 4 or whatever you call it, or Mark 2? Sorry, I need some coffee in there instead of water. But I walked around the show. I'm a little tired. But anyway, so I think it's but that XM193 flash suppressor that's like 5.5 inches long or 6 inches long supposedly can reduce the report by up to 3 decibels. I need to ask my attorney about that because he says it can reduce the report by up to 3 decibels. And that was even classified as a suppressor for a 3 decibel reduction, which is absolute absurdity. And I don't know how do you figure that?
Right.
Because somebody put something that sends the sound forward so it doesn't deafen you at your ears. They're trying to create an illegal silencer. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, it just be like one of these things where eventually you just need the government to say, look, I'll be your Huckleberry. Take me to court. Because I ain't going to say anything to incriminate myself. And if I say anything out to you, it's going to be a trap. I'm laying traps the whole way for court so that it can be and you've already, like I said, these cops aren't, I swear, I think most cops are pretty fucking stupid. Sorry. They just, well, the news said, and I'll let you tell it. You're a famous Amos cop down in Jacksonville where you asked him about the carrying a gun in your car law and the 3-step rumor.
Right.
You tell that story?
He essentially said, it was considered plain view. In the law, it said that if a weapon was in your car in plain view, that it wasn't acceptable. So in other words, you weren't attempting to conceal it. It wasn't in your glove box. It wasn't stuffed between your seat. It wasn't underneath your seat, or it wasn't in a door compartment next to it. So in other words, if you had a weapon sitting on a seat, plain view, was what the law in Florida said, that, it was okay. And there happened to be a police officer. I had the Traveler's Guide to the 50 States of America for
great book, by the way.
Yeah,
I recommend everybody get one
for concealed carry. And so I asked him, because that was actually at that point the first that I had heard of such, because of coming from Florida, we had heard there was 3 steps, 2 steps. There was once again, most gun laws are always so very convoluted and rumors out there, so that just like with this officer, he basically said, I don't care what your book says, or which I could understand that he would not want to take a published book as the law. And I do believe they make a statement in there that does say that, you should always, gun laws change at all times, and so you should always make the effort to further research it. But rather than decide to become knowledgeable as to, what the statute actually said, he's like, well, I would just arrest you and then allow your attorneys to figure it out. And so it was, rather than be educated as to when he was pulling people over and what would be lawful versus unlawful, he just essentially said, I'd just arrest you and then, you can deal with it. So could you just imagine the cost, the costs that are associated with that? You would be, number one, charged with a felony. You'd be charged with a felony.
Well, if you lost your job, imagine you lost your job. I mean, I think that, and that, what is that the cops have
immunity?
The immunity protections that I think people like that, like I said, that would have been a great video if you were recording, or you had your cell phone recording when you asked him about that.
Yeah, what was that? Spoon's
the JSO idiot,
Spoon's Transparency Channel.
But that would have been great to put that up and be like, here's a cop that, I don't see why you give him qualified immunity. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't see why you give him qualified immunity. This guy don't deserve it because he doesn't want to read the law. He's not going, and the only thing that would save your ass in an event like that would be demanding to have his sergeant on scene. His sergeant may tell him, you better not do that, and he might listen then.
Right.
But
that's what the sergeant knows.
Well, he didn't. He was the one telling you 3 steps. If he can't count 3 steps, it was you're carrying concealed is what he called it. Which the 3 steps was always a myth that we always, when we first met back in 2005, I think it was. It was. We talked about the 3-step law, and we found out that was nothing but. And all through our research, that whole truck drivers aren't allowed to have guns in their truck. That's not true. That is not true. It's not in the FMCSA book nowhere. They never will put it there because it's a violation of the Second Amendment, and they know it. Now, your carrier can restrict or tell you you're not allowed to have a gun in their vehicle. But federally, it's not really, now if you're traveling in a state like New York has got a 10-round capacity, you probably don't want to carry your standard capacity Glock 17 in there, or even your standard capacity Glock 19. I wouldn't carry your standard capacity G2C with 12 rounds into New York because you'll get a magazine charge under state. Don't violate the state's rules. But your 10-round Glock 48, okay, just follow the procedure for where to store it, and you'll be fine. So it's kind of one of those where, like I said, but he was just basically saying, I'll throw you in jail and just let the DA work it out. And that's not the kind of cops we know, because that's pretty stupid. And it'd be nice if, you could sue him personally for throwing you in jail. He wouldn't do it then. If you were allowed to sue a cop like that personally, they wouldn't do it. They would think twice. I think that they should be allowed to be sued, honestly.
Right. Well, for a wrongful arrest, for sure.
Yeah, a wrongful arrest. Yeah. If you don't think you have a slam dunk case, you better not put them silver bracelets on. Don't do it.
Right.
If you do it.
The thing of it is he was like, I'll just let the attorneys figure it out. Well, at the time, there's no way in the world I would have been able to have afforded an attorney. And when it comes to that, I wouldn't have been able to afford an attorney. Would have had to have hoped that the quote unquote public defender would have been a qualified individual to have gotten me off as far as that. Which
unfortunately, what most likely would have happened with the DA would probably just drop charges.
Well, we would hope, but at the same time, though, don't forget they're always trying to make us firearm ineligible by attaching felonies to the citizenry, and that way you will under current rules lose your Second Amendment rights, which actually does sort of bring me into another segue that I could go into, which was I was listening to Liberty Doll just a couple of days ago, actually, and the gentleman that had a concealed weapons permit in the Washington D.C. area. I think he was actually in Virginia, so probably don't want to. I think he was in a D.C. area. There goes our big spoon transparency. So if the guy that the TikToker who liked to harass people, by the way, actually ended up, he is still in jail. This gentleman is still in jail, not because he shot the guy. He's in jail because they're violating him on being in a mall where you're not supposed to carry a gun. So essentially, he was actually found that when he shot the TikToker, that he was correct in being able to defend himself. So he's not in jail because he shot the thing. He's in jail because he fired a gun in like an indoor mall kind of a thing, and supposedly that's prohibitive. And he's still in jail. Now, this guy had concealed weapons carry insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what it was I guess there's a couple of different levels of this insurance stuff, and supposedly what he had was actually insurance from an insurance carrier, not from a lawyer. And they actually, because of the circumstances around the case, they actually refused to represent him.
I've been hearing that insurance is not held liable if what you're doing is a violation of the law.
Right, and discharging the weapon inside that mall was in violation of the law. Not that he had every. He said he had every right to defend himself.
So on this topic, there is some talk, and like I said, I don't really. Heavy Duty Country is a guy on here that I don't watch much, but he said that the CCA, what is that? The people that advertise everywhere.
Well, I thought about that. Liberty Doll, when I was watching the program, did not name the company that was representing him. So
Heavy Duty Country has been pushing somebody that's prepaid legal. He said, you don't want insurance, you want prepaid legal.
Yeah.
Because if
See-
you're
see-
hiring for prepaid legal, then the attorneys will defend you if you were guilty of discharging in the mall, but not guilty of carrying concealed. You'll get defended for both.
Right. both criminally and civilly.
They'll definitely defend you on the what you didn't do. Where the insurance companies that are selling concealed carry insurance aren't required to pay for the what you didn't do wrong, carrying concealed, which he didn't violate that, but they're charging him with it anyway. They can deny that claim because you broke the law by discharging the weapon.
Right.
So
right.
where that was where, the argument over, and I watched them guys on that CCA channel one time, and they said something that just lit my crank, and I was so mad at what they said. I think I told you about it. I'd probably have to go back.
Yes, that's why I smiled. Yes, I remember. I remember that rant. I remember that rant.
Oh yes, no. They came out and said that about, and oh god, what's that lady, that 2A news group with the guy and the lady that I already told you about, the ones in Texas that
Armored
they were talking
Scholars?
about. Armed Scholars, the guy. There's the guy and the girl, she was pregnant. Armed Attorneys, I think is what it was. Yes. They were the ones in Texas when they were talking of the Rahimi case. I watched her and I sat there and said to myself, because I'm like, wow, you didn't back this up and take that out and edit that? Because she said literally on the camera that, well, I don't want someone like Rahimi having a gun. And then she kind of, like stopped and paused, like, uh-oh. And then she backs up. She said, but we understand his Second Amendment. No. Everything before the word but doesn't count, lady. You just said it. That you don't, and all I'll say, I'll go back to my thing. If he's free, he should have his Second Amendment. Doesn't matter if he's a shithead or not. You need to lock him up, and then he won't have his Second Amendment. Period. Just like Mr. Big Spoon Transparency, who had a, stupid stuff, long time ago with but I think his rights are being violated. I believe he is somebody whose rights have been violated. That's all I can say. Absolutely not felon, just restrictions and stuff that didn't matter 20 years ago from my research. He'd have been fine to have his Second Amendment right 20 years ago. And then all of a sudden they put in a new rule for something that wasn't a felony. So, but the courts just loved it. Like you said earlier, block us from having our guns. The cop was to arrest you for carrying, not concealed, open in the car. He says,
plain view.
It
was considered plain view.
Yes. Well, I'm saying your gun's in the car, plain view. He wants to arrest you and give you a felony. Saying you're carrying concealed.
Give you a felony charge. Yeah.
So you can't buy a gun no more. So they can strip you of your rights. And that the founders would be absolutely, I think the founders would have probably told us 20 years ago, you ain't killed these assholes yet. It's kind of, you ain't fought for your rights back or put this government back in check. What's the matter with you? Come on, man. It's like, get to the point. That's why we left you the Second Amendment, because they've violated every other one of them.
Right.
They've pretty much taken them all away from us. But anyway, we'll cut it here. I think we had a decent amount.
Oh yeah. Yes, we did. So
it started out a little slow. We didn't have a lot to talk about, but we ended up just continuing to carry on, right? Pushing.
Oh yeah. We just stayed on the march.
Yes.
And we actually ended up in a destination.
And the guns go marching. Oh Lord! But all right, well, I guess we'll see y'all guys next week. We're out of here. So
enjoy your night.